know, since the financial crisis in 2008, obviously there's been a lot of regulations, specifically in the financial services industry, around saying, you know, leaders must lead the way. And it's almost there's this like term called the tone at the top.
Okay.
You know?
Yes.
So what is the tone at the top? What are the attitudes and the behaviors that leaders are actually exercising that say this behavior is right or wrong? I mean, the Enron example, you know, a couple of years before the financial crisis, was led at the top. You know, the unethical behavior was led at the top. So for me, I think an important first step is how are the guys at the top setting the tone? You know? And I think if we look at our political situation, unfortunately, sorry to say, but people look at the head of the state, and the tone that's set there doesn't sit well with the taste buds.
But now, how do you set the right tone? It's very easy to pay lip and say your leaders must set the right tone. Let's understand, how can we achieve this tone, this better tone? What actions can you do?
Well, I mean, it all boils down to what you do every single day. When you wake up, right? And every single interaction, because I think leadership is not so much about grand gestures and you know, statements that you make, but it's really about what you do every single interaction you have with someone, every single interaction you have with, you know, your children, your family, whatever. That is how you you bring out what you believe in.
Okay, so but how do you make sure that that interaction, every one of those interactions, is optimal in terms of what you're trying to achieve?
I think at the end of the day, sometimes you have to think about the greater good. Because, and I think, you know, I really believe that it's impossible for someone to be completely ethical all the time. Because, you know, if you think about Nelson Mandela, for example, some of the compromises that he would have had to have made. If you go and you dig in his entire history, you're going to find there are some things that he did that someone would say, that wasn't ethical. But he was thinking about the greater good. And look, and now if you were to judge him as a whole and say, was he an ethical leader? Because, for example, if you ask his family whether he was there for them all the time, and you know, was he always faithful, etc., etc., you might get a different answer than you know, whatever. So I think it's also important to realize that ethical leadership is something that you always strive towards. But I wonder if it's possible to ever actually get there, and to get there all the time in every single aspect of your life.
Working off of your premise that this is a target that none of us will ever achieve doesn't mean that we shouldn't strive to get closer to it.
Absolutely.
Just like physical perfection. Just because I'll never attain physical perfection doesn't mean I shouldn't go to the gym just to improve just a little bit.
Absolutely. You need to keep trying.
That speaks to what I said in the opening statement, right? If you interrogate your own internal values and beliefs against what is this considered the standard norms around societal values and what is considered ethical, it's always that continuous dance, right, between those two. Because I think a gentleman here mentioned like the internal battle, what would we consider moral, you know, moral dilemma versus the ethical dilemma, and it's continuously balancing that. But the awareness and the continuous working with it on a day-to-day basis, I think, sets the tone as the leader. That's how the behaviors shift.
I believe that, you know, most people start as good people. Right? And when you're brought up, you know, the values that your parents generally instill in you are what most people would consider good. They say, don't steal, and you say yes. You learn not to steal, you learn not to kill, you learn not to, you know, cheat and all these things. Right? In school, you're taught not to cheat on exams and so forth. Right? But there's, I think, human willpower, and as people progress through life, they get weaker and weaker and weaker. And they start to give in to the temptations, and they see what others are doing, and it takes immense courage to be able to say, okay, even though I see everyone else around me stealing when I join this government department, I'm going to be the only one who's not going to do that. And most people don't have that courage, and that's really what happens, in my opinion.